I'm Abigail Maher.
And I'm Leah Kavanagh.
And we are here in the home of Maher in Gill.
B went to school in Gill National School and started in 1934.
We are going to ask B about her memories of the past. What games did you play? Can you give a list?
Well, we played skipping, and we played marbles, and we used to sit on a swing and somebody would push you along. And then with ball games we played Queenie and Donkey, and inside then we had board games, snakes and ladders and drafts, and then you had card games as well, sevens and simple games. And in some houses you had card games, adults used to go and play cards, and we had what was known as a gamble, where they paid money and there was a turkey or something as a prize for the winner. And then in other houses you might have a house dance where some locals went in and they danced around the kitchen and had a good time. And some local would play the accordion or whatever instrument they had.
Did you amuse yourselves in a special way at certain times of the year?
Well, in September we used to go up Killock Hill and pick nuts and that, but that was the only time that we did anything different.
By what name is your home district known as? What townsland in which parish?
Gale, and it's in the part of Gale is in the parish of Boherlahan. And the other, one side of the road is in Boherlahan and the other side in the parish of Maher.
Were there a great number of families in this townsland when you were young?
Yeah, I think about 28 or so.
What were the most common family names then?
Well, Ryan was a very common name, and Maher was a common name around here too.
What types of houses were there? Were they thatched or slated?
Slated. Because a lot of the houses in this area are new. They were built in the 30s when the Phillips estate was divided. There were a lot of new houses built at that time.
Were there any old people living near you when you were a child?
Yeah, and there were a few. A couple were in their 80s, I would say. And Matt Costigan lived across the road from here. He was in his 80s.
Were houses more numerous in former times?
No, there were about the same number of houses now as you had then. I think you might have one or two more now.
Did people emigrate when you were a child?
Yes, some.
Were any local fairs held around about?
Yes, in Thurles. On the first Tuesday of every month you had a fair in Thurles. And then in Cashel you had a special fair on the 26th of March. It was known as the Old Fair Day. But in Thurles you had one on the first Tuesday of every month.
Did people work in the morning before having food?
Yes, some people went out ahead before their breakfast, maybe for a while, and then came in and had breakfast and went out again.
What food was for each meal?
Well, it was very plain food then in comparison to what you have now. You didn't have the luxuries then that you have now. And then during the war, some food was rationed. During the Second World War, some food was rationed, tea was rationed. I think it was an ounce per person per week. And we just have, say, bread and butter and an egg and tea. And for dinner then, well, it was usually bacon and cabbage and that, because well, that's what was available then, and you didn't have fridges or you didn't have anything like that to keep food in it. You had to have something that would hold. And for tea then, it was usually, you didn't have fries like you do now. It was usually just an egg or something in that line again.
What kind of bread was eaten in olden times?
Well, it was usually homemade white soda bread.
How was it made?
Well, just with flour and buttermilk. Just as it's made nowadays, there wasn't any difference. Then if you had a range, you just put it into the range as you do into cookers now, but otherwise if you had it at the open fire, you put it over it and covered the lid with whatever fuel was in the fire just to keep it heated.
Was meat often eaten? Was it fresh or salted? What kind of meat?
Well, it was usually salted because you couldn't keep the meat. It wouldn't last until you go to town again. So you'd have to have something that would keep in good condition.
Were certain foods eaten on special occasions?
Well, at Christmas you had goose or turkey, and at Easter there was a custom of eating eggs. Why, I don't know, but that custom was there, eating extra eggs.
Can you remember any old proverbs? Say as many as you can, please.
Yeah. One good turn deserves another. You can't put an old head on young shoulders. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Or once well that ends well. Many hands make light work. The darkest hour is before the dawn. And don't cross the bridge until you come to it. And it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness.
Do you know any tales about Fionn McCool?
Yes, he was chasing Fionn. The devil was chasing Fionn, and the devil got annoyed and took a bite out of the hill. It's known as the devil's bit now. It's in North Prairie, and he spat it out in Cashel and where the rock is now.
Are there any ancient local monuments such as crosses or standing stones in your area?
No, but we have a graveyard here in Gale, and it's near Caron Hill.
Why is it called Caron Hill?
Because it's in the shape of a sickle.
Is sickle the Irish for Caron?
Yeah, Caron, I think, is the Irish for sickle. I think it is.
Are there any local ruins such as a castle in this district?
Yes, there's a castle in Boherlahan now.
Who built it? How old is it?
I don't know who built it, but it was an old Norman castle which was built in the 12th century, I would say.
How long has it been deserted? Where is it?
Oh, it's deserted for as long as, and for much longer than I remember, but now it's restored and there's a family living in it now.
Any account of a connection between your local area and any episode of Irish history?
Well, during the Civil War and during the War of Independence, a lot of the big houses were burned, but Phillips's wasn't touched because people of the area didn't want anything to happen to it because they were regarded as good employers. Then during the Second World War, we had the FCA in the area, well, all over the country, and they were to help out the army if the Germans arrived. But one day they were having manoeuvres inside in Thurleson at the golf club, and Dr. Barry was passing by and asked what was happening, and he was told that they were going to keep the Germans away. So he just said it was a pity the French didn't know about that because France had just been overrun by the Germans. If they had those lads, that wouldn't have happened.
What changes in the area over the years have you noticed?
Well, the biggest change was the coming of electricity. That made a huge difference to everything around here. It made work much easier, and you had all the mod cons then, and all that made things easier. And then, of course, and that we got that when Killock Hill started. That was it was an old farm there in Killock, and people sold it to the sugar company, and they started getting lime from the ground, and they sold the lime then to the farmers around, and it gave great employment. It gave great employment, and there were lots of lorries and passing by in the morning and at around midday, and then in the evening they all came back and before the end of the day. And then the road improved a lot as well. In the evenings the road was broken up, and it had to be done with gelignite, and the guards used to come out, I think, in the beginning, just with the I think bringing out the gelignite. But there was a great force with this blast, and the windows used to shake in the houses in the area. But then we got used to it, and I suppose as I went deeper in the ground, it didn't have the same effect on the area. Then the next thing was the running water. We didn't have running water when I was young, but in the 50s and 60s the water scheme was introduced into the area, so everybody had water coming into had it on tap coming into the house, and that made it much easier. Before that you had to go to a well or to a pump, to the nearest well or pump, to get water. So it was a great help when it was in the house. Another improvement was the radio, first of all. Back in the 30s you didn't have many radios, you had very few. And of course television came in the 60s, and that changed everything. That you just had entertainment day or night.
We'd like to thank Bea for having us here today and for the tea and biscuits.
And we'd like to thank her for the memories she has shared with us.